When I was in middle age, my hormones controlled about 90% of my brain. What made up the other 10%? Cars and motorcycles, of course. I spent my 20s lusting after every woman living on the planet. I tried college, but the money ran out after 1 year. I met the love of my life, Anne, served 2 years in the Marines, and then married her as soon as I got out. After 2 years of marriage, we went into debt up to our eyeballs, buying a small two-bedroom house. To my horror, Anne got pregnant and 9 months later gave birth to our first son. Someone closed, let me rephrase that. Someone slammed the damn door on my carefree life, and I wasn't happy about it. In those days, if you found out you had a bun in the oven, you didn't care about it. You just accepted it and moved on with your life. Our cute two-seater was replaced by a family car, and we no longer went somewhere just on a whim. We now had to plan and take the house with us. Lovemaking was down from 9 times a week to 2 or 3. Oh well, things will get better when he gets a little older, I thought. But it never did. Such is life. We spent our 30s trying to make ends meet. Now we had another son and a new, bigger house, because 2 bedrooms were no longer enough. Along with the bigger house came a bigger mortgage, which meant longer working hours. Overtime was no longer a luxury, but became a necessity. Now we couldn't buy everything we wanted. A new word was added to our vocabulary: needs. Needs, not wants, now ruled our lives. We planned and set aside money for each purchase. We saved the money left over at the end of the month for emergencies or to pay off one of the credit cards that suddenly came out of nowhere. We were a happy family, but my stress level was at an all-time high. Lovemaking now had to be fit into our busy schedules. Twice a year we had date weekends when one of the parents looked after the boys, and we were now getting to know each other anew. "I'm not as young as I used to be," she complained. "I can't do it all night like I used to." Our 40s were spent trying to get the kids out of the house. With the pay raises of the last 10 years, we have a little more disposable income, even with 2 boys in college. Thank goodness for student loans. Thankfully, they both went to community college so we didn't have to pay for room and board, but the rest of our expenses skyrocketed. It was all worth it when they both graduated college and moved away from home. Yes, we finally became empty nesters. However, Anne replaced the kids with other activities, from going to the gym to dance classes to immersing herself in politics. From our 30s to our 40s, our lovemaking not only didn't increase, it didn't decrease. My time has come again, I kept telling myself. The 50s were to be our time. The kids were free from work, and for the first time in years, we could do whatever we wanted. We took out a couple loans, and I thought we were in for the best time of our lives. And then something happened that I never expected in any way: menopause. It wasn't fair. It just wasn't fair, I kept telling myself over and over again. My wife was going through her changes, and I was going through mine. Her hormones were going crazy, and her mood swings were off the charts. For a while, she tried to control everything with food and herbs, but it didn't work. Eventually, she went to the doctor and got medication to control her body chemistry. She still had temperature swings. She didn't cry on demand, but still had occasional mood swings and night sweats. It was all bad, but the final nail in the coffin lid was driven when Anne lost her attraction. Not completely, of course, but enough that once every 3 weeks was more than enough for her. I'd gone through my 30s and 40s knowing I had something to look forward to and felt cheated. I had done my work for the last 20 years and now I could do it in my sleep. I had progressed so much that my salary was now more than double what it was when I first started, and all the stress from years ago was now gone. I was like a reborn teenager. My wife couldn't get pregnant no matter what I did. "For heaven's sake, Steve, can't you pull yourself together? I'm trying to make dinner and I can't do it and also fight you off," she yelled at me. "Then let's skip dinner and have a little fun." "Remember when we used to make love?" I said, trying to get a kiss. "Back off, boy, or you'll never get any," she replied, trying to finish our dinner. Was I upset? Yes. But what the hell was I going to do? Interrupt her? I said to myself. So after a while, I just let the situation go. I made no advances and waited for her to get aggressive on her own to see how long it would take, or how long she could hold out. After about a month, Anne told me she appreciated me not lunging at her and grabbing her every time she walked by. I can't believe it, I said to myself. She's thanking me for not doing this to her. I needed a plan, I told myself. Anne and I went spinning on Thursdays and Fridays, and on Mondays and Tuesdays we went to the gym. I was pretty friendly with the two women at spinning and the one at the gym, so I decided to see if they could help me get my life back on track. What do you want me to do? Asked Beth, looking at Cindy. I need you to flirt with me, I told them. Not right in front of her, but when she's around, if that makes any sense, I told them. You want us to make Anne jealous? And you think that's going to do you any good? Asked Cindy. I just want her to think that other women find me attractive and desirable, so maybe she'll appreciate me a little more, I told the two of them. So this is all about sex? Asked Beth. I told you he misses Cindy, Beth laughed loudly. Look, Steve, Anne and I are friends, and I don't want her to be mad at me. We'll play your little game, but just not for long. And if it gets out of hand, we'll call it a day. Okay? Thanks, guys. This won't take long. I'm just trying to get our lives up and running, that's all, I told them. And it wasn't a lie. Tammy from the gym agreed too and thought it might be fun. She, like me, was a runner, and we had run and talked on the treadmills more than once. I didn't know exactly how old she was, but she was younger than me. She had a typical runner's build. She looked good, was in great shape, and was sure to catch Anne's attention. We decided it would be best if we met at the gym and went for a run together. That way, we could both work out and be together without attracting Anne's attention at the gym. My plan was working. Cindy and Beth made sure to talk to me before and after class. I helped Cindy set up her bike, and Beth asked if she could share my water bottles because she forgot hers. It took about 2 weeks before Anne started to really notice it, and finally said one evening after class when I was talking to the two of them. Come on, Steve, I'm hungry and I want to go home, she called out to me. Just a second, honey, I said as I went back to talking to Beth and Cindy for another 10 or 15 seconds. See you guys tomorrow, I told them, turned and walked to our car where Anne was waiting. What took you guys so long? She asked. We were just talking about classes and comparing Chris and Jamie's classes, that's all. Well, I'm hungry, so let's get moving, she said, looking at me. When Tammy asked me to go out for another run in front of Anne, I thought she was going to have a cow. Because of your knees, you can't run anymore, and it would be great if you had someone to run with for a change. I'll just meet you at home when we're done, I said to an excited Anne. On Thursday, Cindy touched my arm, laughing at an implied joke, and Beth hugged me for helping her adjust her footrests at Friday's class. Anne just stood there watching us, and when I walked back to the car, I realized she was ready to explode. They're getting too friendly, she said, stepping toward me. What are you talking about? Anne, this is Beth and Cindy. They're just being friendly for God's sake. I'm not sleeping with them, am I? I just don't like them touching you. None of them are married, and I don't want them to get any ideas, she told me as we pulled up to our house. Anne, listen to yourself. Do you feel threatened by Cindy and Beth? You're probably right, she said, still looking at me. When I got home 25 minutes late from the gym after my run with Tammy, I was bombarded with questions. Why was I late? Where had we been running? And why hadn't I called if I knew I was going to be late? Anne, I don't carry my cell phone with me when I run, and it was such a nice evening that we decided to go the extra mile, I told her. We stopped by the hospital and then ran past her apartment and stopped for a glass of water before heading home, I told her. You stopped by her apartment? She asked. Yeah, just for a second to get a drink of water, I told her in my most sincere voice. She has a really nice apartment, and although it's a little small, she has a huge bedroom. The seed had been planted. What the hell were you doing in her bedroom? Shouted Anne back at me. She just gave me a tour while I finished my bottle of water. What are we having for dinner? Said I, deliberately changing the subject. Today, I don't want you in some damn girl's bedroom, you hear me? She shouted. Okay, No more bedrooms. Happy now? I asked. So, what are we having for dinner? We hadn't had anything in a while, and when Anne asked if I wanted to do something this evening, I waved it off for the first time in our marriage. You don't want to have fun with me tonight? An astonished Anne asked. My leg cramped up during my run today and it's starting to tighten up again, I told her. Why don't we wait a day or two until I recover? I asked. For the first time in my life. How does it feel, Anne? I thought to myself. It's great. Just fine, Anne told me. Just let me know when you're ready, she said in an annoyed voice. It was another 4 days before she brought it up again. Why aren't we doing this anymore? Asked Anne on Thursday night after dinner. What are you talking about? We do it all the time, I replied. It's been 26 days since we last did it. I'm keeping an eye on it. God, it doesn't seem like it's been that long. Are you sure? She tossed me a calendar. See for yourself. April 16th is the last time. I looked at it, and April 16th was circled in red. I'm not saying you're lying. It just doesn't seem like that long ago, I told her. You don't kiss me anymore. You don't hug me anymore, she said in an accusing tone. Wait a minute. Aren't you the one who was always complaining about how I'm all over you? That I'm acting like a love-starved teenager and you don't want anything? Or maybe it was someone else who was thanking me for leaving her alone? I said sarcastically. Make up your damn mind, Anne. Either you want it or you don't. Which is it? Not wanting to fall behind, Anne went on the offensive. Well, if you're not getting it from me, Steve, then who are you having fun with? Probably with that tramp Beth, or maybe you're taking another tour of Tammy's bedroom, she said, getting even more angry. Anne, I don't get anything from anyone but you, and even then it doesn't seem to be very often, I said with a smile, hoping to lighten the mood. It didn't work. If I even think you're cheating on me, I'll chop that son of a bitch off, she yelled back at me. It was a joke, honey. It was just my own sick way of making a joke, I tried to tell her before she stormed out of the room. I tried to start something that night, but all I got was her rebuff. Maybe you should call Beth or Tammy. Maybe they have some damn time, was all she said. Anne was furious all weekend. I tried to apologize a couple of times, but got nowhere. Damn it, my plan was worse than a failure. At least I used to get something before, but now it was less than nothing. On Tuesday, I went for a run with Tammy. At least I had a friendly face to look at every night we ran together. Tonight, I need you to push me hard. I have a 10K run on Sunday morning, and I want to test how fast I can run it, Tammy explained. We've been running at her pace for the last month, and today she wanted to run at my pace. I ran a little slow for the first half mile, and then picked up the pace for the next mile and a half. Are you tired of me already, Steve? Or is this the best you can do? She teased me. Okay, girl, hang on to your thong and see if you can keep up with me, I replied. We covered the next 3 miles at almost sprinting speed. A quarter mile before the finish line, I started yelling at her to pick up the pace. Come on, girl, get moving. You don't have to swing away from me, I yelled to her. When I saw her apartment building, I started sprinting. Come on, Tammy, push it. Don't leave anything in the tank, I shouted as we both panted our asses out. I thought she was going to throw up as we pulled into her parking lot. Good job, I told her as we both walked around trying to regain our breath. If you run like that on Sunday, no one will touch you, I said, and high-fived her, after which she gave me a sweaty hug. Thanks, I needed that. Surely I can't talk you into running with me on Sunday. I told Anne I'd invite her to brunch at Tony's to make it up to her. She's been on edge for the last 2 weeks, and I'm trying to win her favor. And maybe in bed, I said with a smile. Well, come on up. I'll get you a Gatorade and send you home, she said as we walked hand in hand to her building. After having 2 small drinks, I went for a 2-mile jog to my house. I didn't see Anne when I walked in the door, so I headed to the shower for a well-deserved shower. I showered, shaved, and brushed my teeth. I was just getting out of the shower when I saw Anne in the doorway. Washing off the evidence? She asked, putting her hands on her hips. What? Said I, not believing what I thought I had just heard Anne say. You heard me, she said, turning around and walking down the hall. And what the hell did I do? I said, finishing wiping myself off. I found Anne pacing back and forth in our bedroom. I can't believe you slept with her. You're almost old enough to be her father. Anne, what the hell are you talking about? Don't play dumb. I'm not that stupid, she snapped back. I followed the two of you today. After your run, I saw the two of you heading toward her apartment, holding hands. I waited for you to come out and left 10 minutes later. It doesn't take a rocket scientist to figure out what you two were doing there. Anne, are you out of your mind? Just listen to yourself. I went in for a couple glasses of Gatorade, that's all. There was no hugging, no kissing, nothing. If you want, let's go to bed right now. You'll never touch me again, she hissed back. I guess I should have thought before I answered. What else is new? I said, which only made her even angrier. Our emotions took over, and we traded insults like a pair of small children trying to hurt each other as much as possible. How would a dried-up shell of a woman like you know? Bad move, Steve, was all my brain said. For the next 20 minutes after the bedroom door was slammed in my face, I tried to retreat. I sat in the hallway with my back against the door and listened to Anne cry nonstop for the next 2 hours. After that, things quieted down. I knocked on the door several times, but got no answer. I went down the stairs to the kitchen, made something to eat, and spent the night on the couch trying to figure out how I was going to get out of this situation. I woke up sometime around 6:30 and went upstairs to an empty bedroom. The bed was made, but she was gone. Sometime during the night, Anne had gotten out of our house and gone somewhere. I showered and got dressed for work. It had been a long day. I wrote a dozen emails to her at work asking for forgiveness before I could fill up the voicemail account on her cell phone, but got no response. After work, I went to look for her, but came home to an empty house. Anne entered the gym and glanced around the workout area before she noticed her. Tammy was just getting off the machine, wiping the sweat off herself in the machine, when she felt a bump that made her fall to her knees. Anne came up behind her and swung with all her might from somewhere on her left side. "Leave my husband alone," she shouted. "Find a man of your own and stop sleeping with mine, slut." Anne had picked the wrong girl, that was for sure. She had already started to turn away when Tammy rose to her feet and pounced on the surprised Anne with a cold look, taking her to the ground. "Bitch, don't you dare raise your hand to me again, or I'll mop the floor with you. I won't sleep with your damn husband, but after this, if he asks me to, I'll gladly give in to him." "It's not my problem that you can't satisfy your man," Tammy said as she walked away. Anne lay like that for about 20 more seconds before one of the trainers helped her to her feet. "Are you okay?" he asked. "No, I don't think I'll ever be okay again," she replied, and walked out looking at the stunned group of people. "I'll never be able to show my face out there again," she said as she got into the car. The knot on her face, just under her left eye, began to throb and swell as she pulled up to her son Kenny's house. His wife Lisa met her at the door and asked what the hell was wrong with her face. "Lisa, questions later. Just get me some ice, please." A frozen bag of peas applied to her face for 20 minutes reduced the swelling, but it was clear to Anne that she was going to have one hell of a bruise. "Anne, who did this to you?" asked Lisa. "I did it to myself," was all she answered. When Kenny got home shortly afterward, he was furious when his mother didn't tell him how she got the black eye. "Daddy didn't do that to you, did he?" "No. Your father never raised a hand to me in all the years I've known him. He was the kindest and most compassionate man I've ever known. I'm just sorry I drove him away. I hope his next wife will be to his liking." Kenny finally reached me on my cell phone. "Dad, you need to get over here right now. There's something wrong with Mom and she's not right in the head. I don't know what's wrong, but I think you need to get her to the hospital right away," my son told me. I never would have thought that Anne would end up at Kenny's because Anne didn't really care for Lisa. She thought Lisa was pushing Kenny too hard so they could have the best things in life. Who would have thought it? "Anne, what happened to your face?" I asked, walking into the living room. "Steve, let's just go home." Anne stood up and took my hand. The ride was quiet until Anne spoke. Tammy and I got into a fight at the gym. I told her to stay away from you after I hit her. She hit me back and told me she wouldn't sleep with you. As you can see, I got the worst of it, Anne said as we pulled into the garage. When we got into the house, I should have grabbed her, told her how much I loved her and that she was all I cared about. Instead, I did something really stupid. I told her the truth, that I was just trying to make her jealous. When I tried to explain what I did and why, she just looked at me without saying anything. But that didn't last long. Mount St. Anne was about to erupt. Let me get this straight. You set this whole thing up with Beth, Cindy, and Tammy to make me jealous so I could have more fun with you? Didn't you? You let me make a complete ass out of myself in front of 30 people at the gym because you wanted to get in my pants again? Was it all just your sick game? Is that all you think of me? Just a toy? What happened to me being your loving wife, your partner, the mother of your damn children? Spoke Anne, asking me question after question. You miserable piece of shit! Get out of my sight! Anne shouted, stepping forward. Anne, I did it for us, I tried to say as she beat me with her fists, screaming at me to get the hell away from her and out of her house. Anne picked up the canisters off the counter and threw them at me along with everything else she could get her hands on. I had never seen her so furious. She kept screaming and demanding that I leave. I left for no reason, just to defuse the situation and let her cool down. But that didn't happen. When I got home that evening, she was gone. I found out later that she had gone back to my son's house. On Thursday, after I left for work, Lisa came into the house and took some more of her clothes. I spent the rest of that week eating crow and trying to get Anne to talk to me. I found out later that she had talked to both Beth and Cindy and had lashed out at them as well. As I said, my plan failed. All the next week I called, emailed her work, and even traveled to my son's house to talk to her. Nothing helped. Mom doesn't want to see or talk to you, Dad, Kenny told me. Just let me talk to her for a minute, I begged him. I'm sorry, Dad. I think you really screwed up big time this time, he told me. On Friday, I got the surprise of a lifetime. Mr. Stephen Moore? A man asked when I opened the door in my running clothes. Yes, what can I do for you? You've already been served. Have a nice day, he said as he handed me a manila envelope. I didn't even bother to read the papers. 2 minutes later, I was already in my car, heading to my son's house. The son met me on the steps. You son of a bitch! You let me stay in the shadows! I shouted at him. Where the hell is she? She and Lisa took off because they knew you'd be here sooner or later. Well, then I'll just wait the hell out for them, I told my son. I can't let you do that, Dad, Kenny told me. Why the hell not? I asked. Mom asked me not to, was his only answer. Then you better call the police because I'm not leaving. The little asshole did just that. I was escorted off his property and 24 hours later, a restraining order was placed on me. I got mad and changed the locks on the house. 2 can play at this game. My second son, Jimmy, tried to interfere with what was going on, but everyone told him not to get involved. Things got really bad when Anne tried to get her clothes out of the house. Lisa and Kenny came to the door, but I wouldn't let them in. Get off my property or I'll call the police, I yelled to them through the door. Dad, just let us take Mom's clothes, he begged. I can't. Unless you have a court order and receipts, she's not getting anything. I'm already thinking of having a small bonfire in the backyard to get rid of all the junk in the house, I told them, as Kenny got angry and tried to force his way into the house. The police escorted the pissed-off Kenny and Lisa off my property. Payback is a bitch. I threw the divorce papers in the trash and told her I wouldn't sign them. I didn't hire an attorney and avoided her at every turn. I didn't answer phone calls, emails, or open the door unless I knew who was coming. Same at work. If she wanted a divorce, she should have pursued it herself. I thought with time she would soften up a bit. Guess I was wrong. After 6 months of strife, I thought I had gotten a little stronger until Anne started dating and making sure I knew about it. She went here and there and wiped my nose every chance she got. Tom says I'm the best girl he's had in years, read a letter Anne sent to the house. Just thought you might be interested to know that not everyone thinks I'm some dried-up shell of a woman. The photo attached to the letter of her in bed with him was enough to ruin that week and the next 6 months. I had written off Anne, Kenny, Lisa, and for a while my second son, Jimmy. I had done something stupid and lost everything. I fell into a deep depression and ended up taking medication and seeing a psychologist and a woman. Once a week, I'd pour my heart out to her and tell her what a stupid ass I'd been. But after 3 months, she helped me realize that it wasn't entirely my fault. From day one, I kept a journal, writing down my feelings about Anne and everyone else. I lamented the fact that I had let my life go to waste and that Anne and I had stopped communicating. For the first time in 10 years, I started traveling for work. It helped me take my mind off my problems and get back on my feet. Every once in a while, I would run into someone I knew, and they would say how sorry they were to hear that Anne and I had broken up. Then, they'd add that they'd seen her with so-and-so, as if I really wanted to know. I stopped going spinning and gave up my gym membership. There was no point in going out with other acquaintances who seemed to take great pride in telling me how well Anne was doing. The only consistency in my life was that I was still running like a man possessed. One Sunday morning, I was taking a long jog when I heard a familiar voice behind me. "I thought you moved or died," Tammy said, catching up with me. "Just inside," I told her, slowing my step so she could keep up with me. "I feel responsible for what happened," she said, stopping. "It's not your fault. I'm the one who started it, and I guess I'm the one who finished it," I told her. "Well, you look like shit. Why don't you come over sometime and I'll make you a home-cooked meal? You know where I live, don't you?" "Ernest, maybe I'll take you up on your offer when I get back in town. At least I'll give you a call. How about it?" I told her. "Well, I'll stay out of the way this time. Remember, you have to call me when you get back," she said, as she hugged and kissed me tightly. I planned to take 4 days off before going on a 2-week trip to our clients in the Northeast. It was supposed to be a PR trip. It was my boss's idea. "Get out of here for a couple weeks. You're just stale, and you need to get your head and ass back together again. Go through NE territory, and I'll see you back here when you're done." I reminded him that I had a few days vacation. "Okay, so I won't see you for 3 weeks. It's not like the world will stop spinning if you're gone for a while. Just make sure Katie's on top of things and your team leaders know what to do. Have a good trip, get laid, and I'll see you when you get back." Tuesday morning, I woke up in an almost good mood. I put on shorts and sneakers and went for a long run. The weather was beautiful, and I used the time to clear my head and plan where life would take me in the next couple months. I think I'm going to sell the house. It's too big for me, and I can rent an apartment until I decide where I'm going to live next. I took a few bucks out of the bank and bought a small one-bedroom condo in Sarasota, Florida. Now I was planning to retire there in the next 3 or 4 years. Anne and I had talked about it years ago, and it looked like I was going to do it alone. As I passed the large Catholic church, I waited impatiently for the stop signal across the street from the school. I almost crossed the road against the light because I saw only one car coming, but for some unknown reason, I decided to wait. The light turned green, and I started to cross, as did a group of school children with a teacher on the other side. What made me look, I have no idea. Only that I looked to my right and noticed that a car was not slowing down. I yelled at the kids to get back to the curb, but they just stopped and stared at the crazy man who was yelling at them. I ran 15 yards in record time, even with my arms fully extended. I pushed all 10 kids away, including the teacher, and knocked most of them to the ground. That's all I remember. I tried to open my eyes, but only one gave in. I had a hard time focusing and getting my brain to work. I saw 2 faces looking down at me as I tried to say something. "Can you tell me your name?" "Who is Anne?" they asked. I lifted my head slightly, and then everything went back to black. The next time I woke up, I felt something pressed against my forehead. It took a few minutes before I tried to realize what was happening, but I was still at a loss. I raised my right hand and saw nothing but tubes, just as I had in my left. A dark-haired angel with olive skin was wetting my lips and pouring a few drops of liquid into my open mouth. I must have looked like a bird trying to get a juicy worm. Don't try to talk. You have been in an accident and are in the hospital. Don't try to lift your head up, just relax. Do you know your name? She asked. I heard the question and understood it. It's just that my body wasn't responding, and I couldn't answer. I got frustrated, and the next thing I knew, I was back in a la 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 land. And I had actually managed to push everyone to the curb and beyond. That is, everyone but me. The driver eventually tried to tear out of his seat, but ended up kicking me in both legs while I was in the air, pushing everyone back. The impact made me spin like a wolf, and I crashed head and body into the side of his car. I ended up with 2 broken legs, 4 cracked ribs, a punctured lung, a concussion and broken nose, and a bunch of scrapes and bruises. I was a mess. The teacher said I yelled out Anne's name just before I passed out and fell into a 15-day coma. The nurse told me I came out of it, but 2 minutes later, I was out for another 5 days. I had no identification on me, and my face was swollen and badly scratched. The local news station was running a story about a local hero who had risked his life to save the class and the first-grade teacher. No one knew who I was, and they were asking the public to help identify me. They listed my landmarks, but never published a picture of my face because it was in such a mess, but no one responded. Tammy was eating dinner and watching the news when they asked again for help identifying the hero runner. When she heard that he was near a large Catholic church on 10th Street, she set her fork aside. That's our route, she said to herself. After skipping most of the story, she called the news station. Runner, she asked. Could you give me his description again? He's about 170, 11 centimeters tall, brown hair, weighs about 175 pounds, Tammy was told. Do you think you know who he is? They asked. I need to make a quick call. I'll call you back, she replied. Pick up the phone, damn it! Pick up the phone! She yelled into the receiver. Screw it, she said as she ran out of the apartment, jumping in her car and driving away. Please, 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 please don't be who I think you are, she said to herself as she pulled up to Steve's house. His car was parked outside the garage, and after knocking on the door for 5 minutes, she tried to look in the windows. Can I help you? The man asked as she walked back to the house. Have you seen Steve lately? I'm a friend of his, and there's no way I can find him, she explained. Last I heard he was out of town for a couple weeks, but that was a long time ago. The last 2 times I've mowed his lawn, but I haven't seen any fur or pelt. It's too bad he and Miss broke up. He took it really hard, he told me. Do you have a key to his house? I asked. I have a key, but only for emergencies. Take my word for it, this is an emergency, Tammy said loudly. It looked like someone had gone to get a newspaper and hadn't returned. Coffee was brewed, but not started. Bagels and butter were on the kitchen table, and the bathroom light was still on. What hospital is he in? Asked Tammy, writing down the news and getting ready to leave again. Just lock up. I have a bad feeling I know where Steve is, she said as she pulled away. His face was still swollen and puffy from his broken nose. The cuts had already begun to heal, and it didn't take Tammy more than a minute to recognize him. He mentioned Anne's name several times and is no longer in a coma, but he hasn't fully regained consciousness yet, his personal nurse told Tammy. When he was in a coma, the church sent someone to read to him every day, and now they're paying for his care. He's kind of our local celebrity, the nurse said with a smile as she gently brushed his hair off his forehead. His name is Stephen Moore, and he lives at 1725 Southeast 12th Street, I told her while she wrote everything down. I gave her the name of the company he works for and told her that Anne is his ex-wife. I gave her my name and phone number and asked her to keep me updated on his condition. I can't believe no one noticed Steve was missing. Hell, didn't his job even bother to check on him when he didn't show up? What about his kids? Then I remembered that after the divorce, Steve no longer had any contact with them since they took Anne's side in the divorce. I was going to call them when I got home, but the news channel beat me to it. Breaking news, one of the evening newscasts blared. The hero of St. Mary's Church has been identified as Stephen Moore of Orlando, Florida, the spokesman announced. He is still at Mercy Hospital recovering from his injuries. The only word he uttered after his heroic act was the name Anne. So, Anne, if you're out there somewhere, Steve is looking for you. Even national news outlets picked up this story. I guess everyone wanted to hear the good news. Everyone found out about it almost immediately. Steve's family and friends called each other and converged on the hospital, where they were greeted by an absolutely furious Tammy. He was in a coma for 30 days and no one missed him? What kind of family does he have? She yelled at them as they all made one excuse or another. All he wanted was his perfect life back, his 2 sons and the wife he loved more than life. And you, instead of talking to him and trying to work things out, blindly threw him in the trash. You all make me sick. So go home to your beautiful lives and leave him alone because none of you deserve him. I think he's shown everyone what he's made of, and so have you, she said as she walked back to his room. They chatted for a while, talking to the doctor and giving the hospital all the medical information they needed. Tammy was sitting at his bedside holding his hand when Anne entered the room. "Get out of here!" Tammy shouted to her. "You gave up on him. He's no longer your husband to kick. So go back to your boyfriend and your beautiful new life, because God knows I'm going to drop you where you stand if you don't get out of here in the next 10 seconds, Tammy said, getting to her feet. Anne cried and walked out. She talked to the doctor, gave him her cell phone and work number, and asked him to be sure to let her know of any changes in his condition. Then she drove to his house, and an elderly neighbor met her as she pulled up in front of the house. "Well, isn't this an event? Steve put his life on the line, saving all those kids without even thinking about the consequences. When he gets out, all the neighbors are going to throw him a big party. I heard his teacher visits him every day after the accident. She calls him her knight in shining armor. I guess I can't blame her," he told me. I asked if he had a key to the house and if he would let me in. "I think it'll be fine. Everyone was surprised when you two broke up. Your husband took it very hard, but I think you already knew that." He let me into the house and left. I had no idea what I was even doing in Steve's house. I hadn't been back since he'd changed the locks and Kenny had taken all my stuff. Nothing had changed. Hell, even the empty hangers were still on the living room floor where he'd thrown my clothes. I went upstairs to what used to be our bedroom. Other than the absence of my clothes, it was exactly the same except for a few holes in the wall that Steve had probably taken out his anger on. Opening the night table drawer, I found that all my stuff was still there, and Steve's stuff was stacked on loose sheets of notebooks. I sat down on the bed, picked up his pillow, brought it up to my face and smelled it. It was Steve's scent, and I continued to hold it to my chest. I placed the pillow against the headboard and lay on his side of the bed, looking up at the ceiling. What made me grab the top notebook, I'll never know. I just grabbed it and opened it. It was Steve's last journal. "I never knew," was all Anne said to herself as she began to read the outpouring of emotion that Steve had spewed onto the paper. His heart and soul were laid out in those 4 notebooks. It took me almost 3 days of nonstop reading to read all 4. About halfway through, I thought maybe I shouldn't read them, but I couldn't stop. He talked about our life together, the good times and the not-so-good times, the breakup. I had no idea that he loved me so much and how much I had hurt him for the past 14 months. I never knew about his depression or his plans to retire. I cried until my tear ducts were empty. I cursed myself as he wrote that he forgave me but couldn't forget what I had done. By the end of the week, I returned to the house and retrieved his journals. Walking down the stairs to his room, I turned on his computer. Hell, he hadn't even changed his password when I logged into his AOL account and checked his email. I deleted all the junk and made a note to call his boss tomorrow. When I saw the email I had sent him all those months ago, I started crying again. He had saved it, and when I opened the picture, I thought I was going to die. I sent it just to hurt him as much as possible, and I guess I succeeded. I almost deleted it, but it wasn't my computer anymore, and I wasn't even allowed in the house, let alone Steve's computer. Day by day, I got better. The bandage was removed from my left eye, and my nose had to be straightened with surgery. My ribs were healing, as were my legs, but under the cast, they itched like a son of a bitch. Fortunately, I only had a mild concussion and no brain swelling, but I'm not back to normal yet. The doctor said the best thing for my body was to stay in a coma. It had time to heal on its own without me moving. My personal nurse, Debbie, was waiting impatiently for me. I no longer required round-the-clock care, so she took care of my needs during my waking hours. And the only time I felt uncomfortable was when she gave me sponge baths. When she started lowering me below the waist, I always got turned on, but apparently I was getting better. I tried to apologize once, but she told me not to worry about it. If you couldn't tense up, then there would be something to worry about, she said with a wink and a smile. I guess she was right. Tammy came by almost every day after work, as did Connie, the teacher I'd rescued. She brought thank you notes from all the kids and said that when I got better, they would all come to the hospital to visit me. She was a single mom of about 41 years old with a 12-year-old girl. I told her she didn't have to come every day, but she insisted. You've given me and my daughter a second chance. It's the least I can do to make sure you are comfortable and your needs are met. Connie came in every day at 4 o'clock and read to me for about an hour. Somehow I felt calm and relaxed with her, and her pleasant appearance only increased my anticipation of her daily visits. Tammy would come around 6:30 and usually brought her dinner. I had to eat hospital food, but every once in a while she would sneak me a Big Mac. I gained about 8 pounds and it all went to my bowels. We chatted about this and that, and she was usually gone by 8 o'clock. I never saw my kids or my ex-wife, but Tammy said Anne looked in on me from time to time. What do you mean the cane? Shouted I to the doctor. Can't you have another surgery? I asked. Your right leg was broken in 2 places and is healing fine, but your left leg was really messed up. You have 2 pins holding it all together, and we still have to go back later to take out a bunch of bone splinters. Steve, I'm just telling you about the worst case scenario, that's all, he explained to me. Sorry, but I'm not buying it. Doc, I'm a runner and have been all my life. I don't have much of a life outside of this room, and now you're telling me I can't even do this anymore. I won't accept that, I told him. What else could go wrong? The work was going great. The team tightened up, and I told them more than once how much I appreciated it. Kathy kept me in the loop, and the 2 of us got everything done on time. My checks were going into my savings account, but none of my bills had been paid in the last couple months. I guess I wasn't thinking clearly about who else should be paying my bills, but me. When the bank sent a foreclosure letter and informed me that my insurance company had dropped me, I was furious. It only took one call to each of them to explain my dilemma. Do you really want to be known as the company that abandoned me when I was in a coma after saving 10 small children? I said to the insurance company. I used the same line with the mortgage company, and they even went so far as to waive all late fees. However, it was time to make decisions, especially regarding the house. The next day, I contacted a realtor and put it up for sale. Anne was going to get half, but it was time to end the loss and move on with my life. At 10 weeks, I was sent home with a nurse. Guess who? Since there was no one at home to take care of me, Debbie was assigned to take care of me. She moved into the guest room and only stayed there at night when I was in trouble. Tammy and Connie still came to see me in the evenings, even though I told them it wasn't necessary. Kenny called and Jimmy came to see me the day after I got home. They both apologized for not being there for me. I told them to forget about it, which I did. But I told them I'd put the house on the market. You can't sell the house, Dad. Where are you going to live? They asked. I'll find an apartment close to work, and in a couple years I'll move south anyway. Have you talked to your mom about that? Asked Kenny. I haven't talked to your mom since last year. Why the hell would I talk to her now? I asked. Please just leave her out of this, okay? I already know what she thinks of me. Friday night, Tammy, Connie, and her daughter Rebecca had a pajama party. We had pizza, beer, and pecan pie. I wasn't allowed to drink beer because of the painkillers, but I had 2 mugs anyway. It wasn't until 10:30 that I found out the real reason for the sleepover. Tammy had taken Rebecca to the store to restock the fridge, and Connie had burst into my room in a fit that would have raised a dead man. I know it's been a long time, and I know you can't do much, but I have to do this for you today. Connie, you don't have to do that, I replied. I know that, but I want to, she said. We got busy, but later we had to stop when the other guests came back. When the cast came off, it was both a relief and a weight. To start, I was scheduled for physical therapy 3 days a week. I would arrive at the clinic in a cab, let them bring me to tears, and then go home. My therapist was a large woman who was merciless and took no prisoners. She would push me to my limits and more. So you're a runner? She asked. Why are you such a wimp? Will you ever want to run again? Or will you settle for a pair of crutches? She said, mocking me. Like I said, I worked myself to tears and then worked some more. I'll show myself to that damn doctor, I kept telling myself. Mom wants to see you, was all Kenny said on the phone. Why? How the hell should I know? He replied. Do you ever want to see me again? I asked. If so, quit the damn games. You're not on my list of favorite people right now, and if you keep shitting on me, you'll be off the list altogether. So let me ask the question again. What the hell does she want? You. She's watching you from afar, working with doctors and therapists on your rehabilitation. She's afraid to talk to you because of everything that happened before and after the divorce, that's all. So what should I tell her? Have her come in Saturday morning after 10 o'clock and I'll talk to her. Hell, maybe I'll even be nice to her, I told my son. Friday night, Connie had some business to attend to, and Tammy stopped by on her way to see her. Anne wants to see me, I told her. I know. I've been talking to her for the last couple months, she replied. And you didn't tell me? Shortly after your accident and after I was socializing with your family, she stopped by to see me. She apologized for the scene at the gym, and after that we started communicating. She had been keeping tabs on you and wanted to know your condition on a daily basis. Before or after having fun with her current boyfriend? That's a question for the two of you. I suggested she talk to you herself. That's why she's coming tomorrow, Tammy told me. I know you have mixed feelings about her, so you need to ask yourself all the hard questions tonight. I'd love to stay, but that's something you have to do for yourself. So have a good night, don't get too drunk, and I'll see you tomorrow afternoon for all the details, she said as she kissed my cheek and ran off. I took Tammy's words to heart and didn't get too drunk. Enough not to feel anew the pain Anne had caused me. Enough so that all the anger I'd held inside for so long couldn't flare up again. I was drunk enough not to carry my journals downstairs and burn them in the fireplace. Finally, I was drunk enough to fall asleep at 10:15 and get a full night's rest. The pain in my leg woke me up at 7:30, and 2 painkiller pills later, I was already making coffee and eating breakfast. By 9 o'clock, I was already sitting on a rented exercise machine in the basement, trying to get my leg to work the way it was supposed to work and not having the slightest bit of luck. When I heard the front doorbell ring, it took me almost 5 minutes to get out of the torture chamber and up the stairs. Come on in, I said to Anne, waddling into the kitchen for a bottle of water. Can I get you anything? I asked. Not right now. Taking cold water from the refrigerator, I walked back to the kitchen table and slumped into a chair, wiping the sweat from my forehead with a towel. Enough exercise for today, I said, drinking a third of the bottle. Well, Anne, it's up to you what you want to talk about. About us, Steve, she began. Anne, we're not here. You put that out of your mind a year ago, or have you forgotten? I remembered, and I've regretted my decision ever since. It doesn't sound like you regretted it much when you were having fun with Tom and decided to share your experiences with me. I hope he was worth all the hassle, I said sarcastically. I think I deserved it. I was so mad at you for your little games that I think I lost my mind for a while. I'm sorry for what I did. You don't need to tell me how sorry you are or apologize for what you did. That's for people who care. And I don't anymore, I said to a surprised Anne. If that's all you have to say, it was nice. But I have a lot of things to do today, and it takes me forever to get them done now. Can't you give us another chance? Don't you have any feelings for me left at all? Asked Anne. I have. For a very long time, even after your graphic letter. But when you kept piling them up and poking my nose in them every chance you got, you kind of killed it all. But I read your journals. Everything you wrote about us. The past and our future together. Everything, spoke Anne when I interrupted her. You read my diaries? How did they get into your hands? I asked. When you were in the hospital, I went to the house and found them. I didn't know what they were until I started reading them. I never knew you loved me so much, and was all she could manage to utter. Get out. Get the hell out of my house. You don't live here anymore, remember? You left me. I yelled at her. Go back to your boyfriend or boyfriends and stay away from me. I shouted at her, getting up and trying to walk out of the kitchen before my leg gave out and I collapsed on the floor. Let me help you, Anne said, holding out her hand as I lay on the floor. I don't need your damn help. Don't you think you've done enough to me already? I spat back at her, trying to get up and falling down again. This time, however, I felt a sharp pain in my leg as I rolled over. Please go away. Anne, leave me the hell alone, I said, lying on my back like a turtle that couldn't get up. I heard her start to cry as she ran out of the kitchen. The front door slammed shut, and I was alone again both inside and outside. I lay like that for at least 15 minutes before I tried to get up again. I crawled on my stomach and my only good knee to the couch and then dragged my busted ass onto it. I was sweating like a pig as I either passed out from the pain or fell back into a coma. When I opened my eyes, I knew exactly where I was this time. You're not listening to me, are you? The doctor said to me as we moved toward the operating room. You broke one pin and messed up your leg even worse than before, he told me. Lucky for you, I was here when they brought you in. So relax, you know what to do, and I'll see you tonight. Waking up in the ward, I saw the same nurse I'd first seen a few months ago. You couldn't get away from me? She asked. I missed the gourmet meals and sponge baths, that's all, I replied, trying to distract myself. Relax, get some sleep, and I'll be there for you when you get to your room. Tammy read me the riot act and pulled me apart on one side and the other as soon as she walked through the door. I leave you alone for one damn minute, and you end up back in the hospital. Don't you think I have nothing better to do than babysit your ass in this place? She yelled at me. Not really, I said with a smile. She laughed. I laughed a laugh that hurt like hell. I found you on the couch with a pin sticking out of your leg. You were bleeding like a piglet. You're just lucky I got here early and found out about your meeting with Anne. If I hadn't, you could have lost that damn leg, and then who would be running around with me? Said Tammy, slapping my arm. Now that we got that shit sorted out, what happened to Anne that put you back in the hospital? Nothing much. She wanted to get back together and apologize for putting me through hell, that's all, I told her. And? So what? I replied. And what the hell did you say to her? Asked Tammy. What do you think I told her? I told her to leave me alone. That's what I told her. And what did you actually say to her? You've been pining for her for the last year. I know you didn't fail. You couldn't have been that stupid. Tell me you didn't fail a second time? Tammy said this with a look on her face. Maybe I was a little mean to her, especially after she said she read my journals. Can you believe she read them? I asked. Steve, I read your damn diaries. When I was looking after your apartment, I found them and read them in one weekend. They were very good. For heaven's sake, hasn't anyone read them? Maybe we should publish them in the paper. Then everyone would be aware of my business, I said with irritation in my voice. Well, if you didn't want anyone to read them, you should have put them away. They were in my damn bedroom, on my night table. I don't remember inviting you or Anne into my bedroom for light reading. Has Connie read them yet? Or are you planning to photocopy them for her? Who put a burr under your saddle? Okay, I invaded your privacy. I'm sorry. Get over it. How long are you going to lie down this time? She asked. I have no idea. My doctor will come by tonight and let me know. I'm really starting to get tired of this place. This time it's your fault. Do you need anything from home? Asked Tammy. Just my master magazine, if you don't mind. Unopened, please, I said with a smile. Looks like I have you for another 2 or 3 weeks, said the doctor, looking at my x-rays. After that, I'll let you go home if, and only if, you sit in that damn chair all day. If not, I'll just keep you here until I exhaust the limit of your health insurance. I'll be on my best behavior, or at least well enough that you won't catch me, I said, trying to add some humor. No jokes this time. One more stupid move like last time and you'll be walking around on crutches for the rest of your life. I heard it loud and clear. No more games and no more pulling. The price was too high. Connie has a new boyfriend and she's afraid to tell you, Tammy said Friday night. She kind of has a crush on you, but she realized it was because you saved her life. After our pajama party, she realized you were too old and she felt guilty. She met a nice guy and they've been dating for the last month, so she hasn't been around as much. She told me she was going to tell you tonight. So don't be a jerk like you were with Anne. She's feeling bad enough as it is. Connie came in about 15 minutes later. I need to talk to Steve alone, she told Tammy. As we watched Tammy leave, Connie had this solemn look on her face. Calm down, Connie. It's not that bad this time. In a couple weeks, I'll be running the streets by now, I told her. Steve, I need to tell you something, but I don't know where to start, she said, looking at me. Connie, let me fill in the blanks. You found someone special, right? She nodded affirmatively. And you feel bad about what I did? Don't. I didn't set out to do what I did, and I don't expect you to obey me for the rest of your life. You've been given a second chance, use it wisely, but use it. Life is too short to waste another minute on an old dumbass like me. So get out of here and live. However, if you do tie the knot, I expect an invitation, I said with a smile. Connie kissed me and promised to stay in touch. As she walked past my bed, I did give her a spank on her ass, though. Tell your boyfriend for me that if he doesn't treat you right, I'm coming after him, I yelled as she walked away. You're a good man, Steve, Tammy said as she came back into my room. She left here with a smile on her face and in a huff. Then why do I feel so bad? Don't worry, honey. You didn't lose a lover. You gained a friend for life. Tam, why don't you get out of here and go home? You probably have a million things to do besides sitting with me. I got my journal and I have to make some entries. Go home, go out, get laid, do something fun for a change. I think my baby needs some alone time, Tam said, kissing me on the lips for the first time ever. I'll check on you on Sunday. Maybe sneak you a beer. Want one? Go ahead. Now, I said, throwing a pillow at her. I spent most of the next day and a half writing in my journal. My psychiatrist would have been proud of me. I thought long and hard about my life, about where I wanted to go and who I wanted to go with, before I finally put the book down at 2 a.m. on Sunday. I only stopped because Debbie came in, took my journal, and told me it was nighttime. 5 more minutes, I begged. Steve, don't make me be hard on you. You need rest if you expect to get out of this place. Don't make me sponge you again, she said with a smile on her face as she approached me with a wet sponge. Tammy snuck a Big Mac and a Corona in an empty ginger ale bottle. You could say heaven, because that's what it tasted like. She stood guard at the door to the room until I was done. We cleaned out the bottle, and I had a few mints to mask my breath. Thanks, I needed that, I said, getting comfortable on the bed. Getting ready for the next chapter of my life. How long, Tammy? I asked, looking at her sitting in the chair next to my bed. How long what? How long have you had these feelings for me? I asked again. A long time. About a month after you first asked me to flirt with you. Why didn't you say anything? It took me a while to put 2 and 2 together, and then I couldn't believe it myself. What are you, 42, 43? 47, but thanks for the ego boost, she said, holding my hand. I was so jealous of Anne. You put so much effort into getting her back, and she didn't care. She went out of her way to get back at you, and for what? Because you tried to put the spark back in your marriage. I'd kill for a man like you to come after me. My husband died 15 years ago and took a piece of me with him. You are the first man I can say he can replace me, among other things. I didn't know at first, but the more time we spent together, I felt something. But I thought I was just imagining it, I told her. You weren't supposed to know. Hell, I didn't fully realize it until I found you in the hospital, fresh out of your coma. I was so angry at them, all of them. I was just seething. I read them the riot act, and when Anne came into the room to see you, I completely lost my temper. I told her that she had thrown you away and that you no longer belonged to her to abuse you. That's when I realized for the first time that I wanted you. I wanted to be your Anne. But I'm much older than you. Like I told Connie, why should you like an old fart like me? How many old farts do you know who can run 20 miles? How many old farts would give their lives to save a bunch of strangers? How many of them would go to the ends of the earth for a loved one? Not too many, I guess. I'm not asking you to sweep me off my feet, hell, Steve. You can't even walk yet, but just think about it. That's all. With a kiss, Tammy left, and I was left alone again. The second time in 3 days to think about what I wanted. For the next 2 weeks, Tammy was constantly in my hospital room. When the doctor came in to check on me, he seemed to be talking more to Tammy than to me. You have to keep your husband at a distance if he wants his leg to heal, he told Tammy. I'm not Steve's wife, just a friend, she replied. Sorry about that. It's just that your name is listed on his chart as the first point of contact, and I just assumed, he said, trying to backtrack. No, I'm not married to Steve or anyone else. A week before I was to be released, the doctor came into my room and read me the riot act one last time. Here's a list of what he can and can't do. He needs to exercise his leg, but make sure he doesn't overdo it. Here's my business card with my home phone number, he said, holding it out to Tammy. Call me anytime, day or night, if you have any questions or anything else you might need. 2 weeks later, I was home again, sitting in my torture chamber trying to strengthen my leg. At the end of the second month, I had made more than a little progress, but I wasn't overdoing it. As I turned on my iPod and cranked up the music, I didn't hear her come downstairs. She watched me for a few minutes before saying something. If you get too hard, you'll end up back in the hospital, and I'll have to babysit your ass again, she yelled loud enough for me to hear her over the music. The doctor said I can start on the other leg in 2 weeks, and I plan to try it out on the street by Christmas. What do you think? You'll never learn, will you? Yes, my angel, I said. Tammy and her boyfriend are coming over for dinner, and I'm going to need your help. I started to say something about my leg injury, but she interrupted me. Remember who you're talking to, she said as she walked up the stairs. She didn't entertain my objections, as she was now as much in control here as she was at work. You see, she had seen me at my worst and loved me for who I really was. It didn't hurt that she was an animal in bed too. Tammy wasn't happy when I told her that I just wanted to be her BFF. I told her that the age difference was just one issue and that I cared more about her as a friend than as a potential lover or life partner. However, one night we did test each other's mettle. When she asked if I was going to go back to Anne, I just shook my head. You see, Anne wanted me back because I was easy. I was predictable, and she knew she could always count on me to do whatever she wanted. Anne knew she had made some mistakes, but figured we could both forget them. However, I still couldn't get that picture of her and Tom out of my head, even when I erased it from my computer. Everyone told me that I had made a huge mistake by not going back to Anne, but it was my mistake. Jimmy and I still talk every week. He told me to follow my heart. I followed his advice. My decision was already made anyway. When my house was sold, I moved in with Debbie. Her apartment wasn't very big, and I ended up getting rid of 75% of my old furniture. You see, she had a big double bed, and for more than a few weekends we never left the bedroom. I guess you could say, we lived for love. After one of her famous sponge baths, we took things to the next level more than once. The last 2 weeks in the hospital were hardly the best 2 weeks of my life. We had plenty of time to talk and get to know each other better. We had more than a few things in common, and our differences didn't even reach a fraction of a percent. She was just what the doctor ordered. Speaking of doctors, that's who Tammy was seeing now. The doctor who did both surgeries on my feet. Even after we talked, she was always there for me, and so was the doctor. It got to the point where he started talking to her instead of me when he entered the room. Then there was coffee at the hospital restaurant, then a movie, then dinner, and then, well, I guess I don't have to paint you a picture, do I? Now I walk Tammy on the weekends and hope to do my first 5K run in 2 months, with Debbie's permission. As I've said before, Debbie rules the ball. She's never let me forget that if I mess up, she'll kick my ass, and if I don't believe her, she'll just give it a try. Am I happy? Yes. Do I plan to marry Debbie? Not now, maybe in the future when we move to Sarasota. Would I do it all again? No way in hell. The end. Thanks for watching, I hope you enjoyed it, so subscribe to my channel and watch the next video.